Minutes to approve. Is
Can we
everybody,
approve them in lump?
yeah. If there's any discussion about them,
So I move that we pass, approve all the minutes of previous meetings.
okay, so that's January 21st. February 4th, the 24th, and March 6th minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion about them? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that sounds good. Laura. The financials, yes.
It's gone, Laura.
The preliminary financial statements ending 12/31/24 were reviewed at the end of the January, were reviewed at the January 21st board meeting when the annual initial deposit adjustment and the year-end closing transfers were reviewed and approved. The year-end financial statements which have been provided for tonight's meeting are the final year-end statements that include the initial deposit adjustment and the transfers. These financial statements have been uploaded to Cornell Peter Document Tracking Tool, along with several other financial statements and supporting documents. Following tonight's meeting, not tonight, Elizabeth will sign off on the year-end document tracking tool, and I will process the closing procedure in Acumatica, which will close out all the revenue and expense accounts for 2024. Once Elizabeth approves the transaction, I can officially close the 2024 books and open the 2025 books. Just as a reminder, CCE Essex County ended 2024 with a net from operations of $33,791.27, which was distributed to and from the different fund accounts according to the approved transfers on the statement of fund balances. Total transfers for the year were $49,739.84 from fund accounts and $83,531.11 to fund accounts. The transfer amounts as well as the total revenues and expenses can be seen on the balance sheet at the bottom of page 1. The net from operations and balancing net transfer amount can be seen on the statement of operations on the bottom of page 3. The net from operations and net assets can also be seen on the cash flow statement on the top of page 4. Anybody have any questions on the financial statements?
The depreciation, is that on the vehicle?
What's that?
The depreciation on the,
That's the total depreciation, since we've had the vehicles, they are completely depreciated.
you didn't realize that you could depreciate it.
We're not depreciating anymore.
So if you buy a new one, will we start depreciation on the new?
For 5 years. Any questions? Can I see the motions that
I gave them to
yeah.
somewhere.
Okay, so we do need the first motion.
Okay, so that's to close out,
For the first one.
okay. So, is there a motion to approve as presented the 2024 end of year financial statements? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Okay,
that's approved.
now I'm going to review the notes, the financial statements, which provides additional information that explains the numbers in the financial statements. These notes also provide an explanation of our organization and purpose, which is item 1, and a summary of our significant accounting policies, which is item 2. I'm not gonna read the organization and purpose section unless you want to, but I am going.
Go
to
get some
review-
food, it's really good.
But I am going to review a few of the significant accounting policies. Did anyone want me to read the organization and purpose?
No.
No,
Just want to make sure. Okay, the CCE financial statements are reported on an accrual basis, which recognizes revenues when earned and expenses when incurred, regardless of when the cash is received or paid. Revenues that have been received but not earned are recorded in the deferred revenue account, and expenses that have been paid but not yet incurred are recorded in the prepaid expense account. Both accounts can be seen on the balance sheet, and details of each of these accounts is provided at each board meeting. Some of the other items on the balance sheet generated from using the accrual method are accounts receivable and all current liabilities. The net assets of CCE are presented as restricted or non-restricted. CCE Essex County doesn't have any restricted net assets. The net assets are reported in the designated and general funds and can be seen on the bottom of the balance sheet. The total amount of unrestricted assets on 12/31/24 is $567,113.70. If anybody needs me to slow down, you can look at the numbers if you want, just so you know.
Thank you.
Cornell University administers the payroll function for CCE. This is why we have the initial payment deposit account at Cornell, which is currently $34,091. This deposit is listed as a non-current asset on the balance sheet. Fringe benefits, except for workers' compensation and unemployment insurance, are provided by New York State through Cornell University. The total value of fringe benefits for 2024 was $353,118.50. CCE only capitalizes purchases of fixed assets costing $5,000 or more. Currently, the association are the only fixed assets, and they are completely depreciated. The total value and accumulated depreciation of $40,688 is listed under fixed assets on the balance sheet. CCE Essex County employees are allowed to accumulate up to 21 days of unused vacation and carry over 5 days into the following year. The journal entry adjustment is made at year end to increase or decrease the accrued vacation based on the total value of all employees' vacation time remaining. The total liability for accrued vacation at year end was $10,873.46 and can be seen on the liability section on the balance sheet. CCE Essex County support and revenues typically come from county, state, and federal government and self-generated revenues and grants. CCE Essex County receives substantial support from Essex County, comprising of 32% of total support and revenues in 2024. Does anybody have any questions on any of our significant accounting policies?
Is that $350,000 for fringe benefits? Does that include the vacation time too?
No.
So that includes what?
That includes all
Oh,
benefits that are provided by health insurance. Everything that would be provided in their fringe.
It also includes their social security, workman's comp,
It doesn't.
or not social security, workman's comp, unemployment.
It doesn't include workers' comp and unemployment. It does include disability. I'd have to look at it, I'm sorry. But that's a good
Oh, that's
question.
right, we take.
There is a list of things that it includes. So I'll get that for you.
Then. No.
Do our employees have life insurance or anything like that?
You can.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have to pay for them?
Mhm.
Yeah, not much. Actually, I think we get a life insurance, I think when you're hired, there is a life insurance. Small life insurance policy, and you can get more if you want.
There's a life insurance policy on so much of your salary.
Yeah. So I definitely get a statement from Cornell about that,
Yeah.
and I don't think I pay into it. I think it's just part of,
There's a separate one.
it's a benefit.
So now I'm going to review the schedules. I will get that for you, George.
Yes.
It's several things. I just can't think of it all. Now I'm going to review the schedule and financial statements included in the notes. Please let me know if you have any questions after I complete each review. Schedule of fixed assets, number 3. This schedule shows the total fixed assets and the total accumulated depreciation. The additions and dispositions column shows the amount of fixed assets and any depreciation added or removed from the fixed asset account. And it also shows the recording of any non-capital assets to the fixed asset account. The $8,229.18 seen in those two columns represents 2 times $4,114.59, the cost of 3 laptops purchased in 2024. This is a process that allows us to record non-capital fixed assets to the asset module for record keeping purposes. Since we don't depreciate items under $5,000, the cost and total depreciation amount that would be depreciated are added and then removed, leaving the asset reported but not requiring any depreciation. I know that's a lot. Does everyone understand that? I did a much better job having it written down to try to explain. Dan knows what I mean. Okay.
Daniel did review all of these with Laura earlier last week, early.
So number 4 is the schedule of investments. This schedule lists our investments with our currently 2 $100,000 certificates of deposit held at Community Bank. The additions and dispositions columns show new CDs purchased and any interest that has been added or subtracted during the year. In June, our first CD matured and we renewed it for the initial amount of $100,000 and withdrew the interest of $4,461.81, which is in the disposition column, and deposited that into the checking account at Champlain National. The addition column shows the total interest earned on the first CD in the first row and shows the combined amount of the new CD purchased in June and the interest earned in the second row. The total value of the 2 CDs is listed on the balance sheet under non-current assets. The 6-month CD that is held at Champlain National Bank is listed under current assets. Does anybody have any questions on the schedule of investments? Now we move on to number 5, which is the schedule of net assets without donor restrictions. This is a list of all the fund accounts, the purpose of each one, the starting and ending balances, and any activity during the year. This list can also be seen on the statement of fund balances, which is the document that is used to review and approve the suggested year-end transfers. The ending balance is on the bottom of the balance sheet. It's the $557,113.70. Any questions on that one? Number 6, classification of functional expenditures. This statement breaks down expenses into the 3 functional areas of program management in general, and funding. I have a worksheet that I use each year to help determine how much of each expense should be included in each column. Management in general was flagged as being high at 25% on last year's compliance review, and we were able to reduce the percentage to 23% for 2024 by hiring additional program staff. This is not a major concern, but just something that the compliance review manager likes to bring to our attention. The ideal percentage per compliance review manager is less than 25%. But this has been an ongoing discussion at finance team meetings and throughout extension because the breakdown of these expenses can vary so much depending on staff longevity and salary rates, and they are also affected by staff turnover and unfilled positions. There are some nonprofits that consider the ideal amount to be under 35%, so our percentage would actually be considered good in that case. I do have the foreign code with me if anyone's interested in an explanation of the expenses that are included in each one of the functional areas. Would anybody like to see that, or does anybody have any questions on the statement of functional expenses?
One of the purposes of doing this functional expenses is to ensure that nonprofit organizations don't spend a high percentage of their time raising money, that they actually spend it doing programs, and we are 1%. Let's see how long that holds. We may have to do some new kinds of fundraising, but that's remarkable.
On to number 7, right of use assets leases. CCE Essex leases copier equipment under an ongoing operating lease agreement with a term of 5 years with no option to expand. Operating lease cost is recognized on a straight line basis over the lease term. Association lease agreements for finance and operations over 12 months long need to be recorded as fixed assets and a liability in accordance with ASU 216-02 to be compliant with US generally accepted accounting principles. The generally accepted accounting principles for not-for-profit organizations require fixed assets to be depreciated over their useful lives, and in this case, over the period of the lease. This statement shows the total value of the use of the equipment, any added equipment leases during the year, if any, the accumulated amortization of the equipment operating leases, current and non-current amounts, additions and dispositions of each during the year, and the balances at year end. The disposition in the accumulated amortization row is the reduction of the current value of the right of use asset. The addition in the operating leases current row is the total amount of the non-current amount that has been moved to the current amount during the year. The decrease of the non-current amount during the year is seen in the disposition column in the following row of the operating leases non-current amount. The amount in the disposition column of the operating leases current row is the total reduction of the current amount during the year. The sections at the bottom of the statement show the total number of payments remaining, the average discount rate, which is the presumed interest rate. We do not actually pay interest. The monthly amounts have been calculated on an amortization schedule that was suggested by the finance team. Each month when the payment is made, there is an 8-line transaction that records the monthly additions and dispositions and maintenance portion of our payment in the appropriate accounts. The balance of each of these accounts can be seen on the balance sheet under right of use assets, current liabilities, and non-current liabilities. I have a copy of the transaction that's used for that, if anybody needed to see that. Does anybody have any questions on that? I know that's another confusing one.
It's dictated to us by extension for the most part. We used to do it in a different way.
We used to just record it as rental. Okay, so we'll move on to number 8, which is non-financial asset contributions. And this statement just shows the value of the use of the office building for the year. And that was provided to us by the county manager. The final statement is liquidity. Extension Association are required to disclose relevant information about the liquidity or maturity of assets and liabilities, including restrictions and self-imposed limits on the use of items in the notes to the financial statements. Our liquidity ratio is approximately 14 months based on the assumption that our projected budget remains as it is. This ratio can go up or down depending on any addition or reduction in funding sources or expenses. This statement includes a qualitative and quantitative section. I'm going to read the qualitative section, which provides an explanation of the amounts in the quantitative section. CCE Essex County has $1,282,154.44 of financial assets available within 1 year of the balance sheet. Date to meet cash needs for budget expenditures consisting of cash of $245,451.20, estimated county, state, and federal appropriation of $469,311, encumbered grants and contracts totaling $464,797.67, and current receivables of $52,754.34, and current marketable securities of $102,281.66. None of the financial assets are subject to donor or other contractual restrictions that make them unavailable for general expenditure within 1 year of the balance sheet date. CCE Essex County has a goal to maintain financial assets which consist of cash on hand to meet 60 days of normal budgeted operating expenses, which are on average approximately $184,885.89. CCE Essex County has a policy to structure its financial assets to be available as its general expenditures, liabilities, and other obligations come due. In addition, as part of its liquidity management, CCE Essex County invests cash in excess of daily requirements in certificates of deposit. That quantitative statement reflects the numbers that are in the quantitative statement below. Does anybody have any questions on?
Again, we really vastly exceed the recommended amounts for nonprofit organizations. Usually a 2-to-1 ratio is considered a lower ceiling, but a reasonable amount. We are at 14 months, and as opposed to 2 months, so that's really solid and strong. Basically, we have, within a year, we could access all those assets and cover any of our expenses.
Number 10, contingencies and payments. This statement is provided to make you aware of the possibility of any situations involving uncertainty. Extension Association receives grants which are subject to audit by agencies of the state and federal governments. Such audits may result in disallowance and request for a return of funds. Based on prior audits, the Extension Association's administration believes disallowances, if any, will be immaterial. Anybody have any questions on any of the notes for the financial statements?
I know I've asked you this question before. Have we ever been audited here?
Not while I've been here. There was a general audit by the compliance review manager prior to me being here. But we haven't been physically audited. Our year-end compliance review was substitutes for our audit for when we apply for grants. But we haven't had a physical audit.
But we have had exceptional reviews from the compliance officer for years. And that's why we can use it as a substitute for a physical audit. And if in a physical audit, they would come in and pull out all the receipts and see all the people back up for everything. But we haven't, if they want it.
You got it. So we're gonna need those other two motions.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve as presented the 2024 notes on the financial statement? Daniel, a second?
No second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I just
And-
want to thank Laura for another amazing year of incredibly accurate, thorough, thoughtful, reporting. And book accounting. She was amazing. So another great year.
Thank you. So the next item on the financial section of the agenda is the cash flow projection. You've each been
Do you
provided,
need a motion to close the books? No?
oh, I thought we did that.
Oh, no,
Sorry,
there
I
was,
wasn't paying
okay,
attention.
so then could I get a motion,
Yes,
please,
definitely need
to close the books for 2024 and open the books for 2025? Second,
I got it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? You're good.
Thanks, Lori. I'm rushing ahead, sorry. So you've each been provided with two cash flow projection charts. They've both been updated as of Friday, March 14th. The chart with the red and blue columns represents our projected cash flow without including any at-risk funds in the total projected cash and savings at year end. The red section is the at-risk funds. The total projected cash and savings at year end on that statement is $450,199.52. The chart with the blue, yellow, and red was updated with new assumptions to include the combined amounts in the previously at-risk funds column and the cash on hand column. There is a third column for funding still at risk that is not seen on the chart, which is the small section of red on the top of July. The total projected cash and savings at year end on the updated chart that includes funding that is currently considered safe. It's the yellow section, because things change so quickly. The balance on that statement is $513,771.28. The reason March is so much higher on the original cash flow is because it included actual revenues that have been received so far, plus any projected safe receipts at the time, but it does not include all the budgeted expenses, which are included in the updated chart. And then from April forward, except for that one small branch, all the budgeted revenues and expenses are included. And assuming that we get payments for everything. Do you want to add anything?
No, just another thank you for creating this visual representation that is very, very helpful. And the first one of these that was done back in January really looked like we were falling off a cliff. And we did not share that with all of you, but it looked pretty dire. And so it's just steadily improved as we've gotten our county allocation in place and and we have received some reimbursements for some payments on some invoices, but the biggest one, of course, is the FMPP is now, we're considering that safe and it was definitely at risk up until a week ago today. So it's looking a lot better. Anybody have any questions? Is this, Markel, we shared these at the executive committee meeting and we are still working on, Laura and I haven't really talked about it, but doing it by program instead of by the calendar year to show what might be at risk. But right now, the program funding nothing is really looking at risk except for that very small grant. And the reason why that one is looking possibly at risk, that little red bleep, is because the title of that project is diversity in agriculture. And that word might flag a rejection of the payment request. It's from a federal grant or federal funding.
So, no questions on the charts?
I have a question for all of
Yeah, this looks like what we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Right, when we were-
Yeah. If there's another way that you all visualize things that would make it easier for you to understand this, let us know. We can also explain it in more depth if you want to change it in the future. This is a new tool that we're using and it's really helpful to me to see it this way. So if it doesn't work for you, let us know. We'll make it another way.
Right, and the funding pie charts for the program areas that was requested. I've worked on the pie charts, but I haven't had a chance to review them with Elizabeth. And I also have a couple of questions. This is the pie chart, and I have one for each of the program areas. I couldn't print them. I have issues with my mini laptop.
Oh, no.
I think
We're getting there.
it's
We're
just
getting there.
Excel. Do you want to see the total dollar amount, the percentage, or both of each slice of the pie?
Both.
Both.
Please.
Percentages can be misleading.
Mhm.
Do you want the dollar amount of salaries and other expenses funded separated out on each slice for the different funding sources?
That's gonna be visually a little complicated, but
I was thinking of making the pie a light color and dark color with a lighter shade of blue.
oh, yeah, she's a genius, yeah.
If you want to see it separated out, otherwise I can just.
So that would be salary included in grant funding,
So this is administrative.
right?
So this big blue piece is county funds that covers administrative expenses. I was going to make part of that piece of the pie is salary and part of it is other expenses like our utilities.
Insurance.
So I was thinking of slicing that slice to show what share of it is salary and what share of it is other than salary.
Okay,
And I would represent them by a lighter shade of the same color.
okay.
Is that something you would want to see, or is it okay just all together?
I think it'll be hard to know until we see it.
Okay,
How many pieces of the pie there have you got? Why? How many do you eat, George?
So administrative is covered by county funds, New York State 224, Smith Lee Road enrollment fees. Operating funds, which is funds that are received from indirect costs from grants and also other net funds, donations to the association. And designated funds. So each program area has different funding sources
Right.
that pay for the expenses.
So each piece of that pie represents a different
Funding
programming?
source. No. This is just one piece of the pie for the administrative program area. Not it.
So there would be a different.
There's one for 4-H, there's one for senior health and fitness, there's one for ag, there's one for Adirondack Harvest, because they wanted to see that separately. I also have them together. And there's one for nutrition, which is the FMPP grant. And one for community, which is Master Gardeners and the local food guide.
Personally, you know how to do it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't do it unless you're actually asked to do it. And I don't think there's any need to actually do the extra work unless there's somebody who is Elizabeth. Required to do it.
Well, my
I
thing
haven't
about,
even, sorry, I haven't even gone over any of it with Elizabeth yet. We just haven't had a chance to meet.
I feel like, we were asked in response to a question, it made sense to put it together. I don't think that the salaries make a difference. And honestly, I think it's a representation to explain it more than for decision making. It's, so that would be, yeah.
We had asked for a breakdown when we were in executive session and discussing the lack of federal funds at all. And we had just figured they were never gonna show up.
Mhm.
And how are we gonna get through the year and what pays for what?
Well, now that that's not an issue, I don't
That's
think
not
I
an
would.
issue.
I think,
Hopefully, that's not an
right,
issue.
if we trust it going forward, I think really the difference in the is, people came into that executive committee meeting going, who are we gonna have to cut? And the answer is we're not doing it that way. We're trying to keep everyone and cut our expenses so that everyone, that we don't cut anyone. And then if we were gonna have to take that next step and cut salaries, that we would try and do it across the board, not eliminate any one position.
Well, I think,
That's all moot now.
and I think definitely proved that. And this was the same thing I brought up at the county is. You have fund balance to be able to weather storms.
Mhm.
And I don't think like, you and I have had quite a few conversations, it's don't raise the red flag until we absolutely know something's getting cut. Because everything I've been to, state-wise, even federal wise, keep staying the course until there's something that's gonna happen. I mean, right now, there are people talking out of both sides of their mouth and both sides of their, you know where. And I think it's all scare tactics, and there's all these things that are going to be, but at the end of the day, you have time to pivot and make decisions, whereas there are some places and some organizations that don't have what you have here.
Right.
And so I think I think it's great planning for the worst, but sometimes sometimes planning for, yeah.
Well, I agree with you, and I think this exercise has been really helpful. That's why for me, I never approached it as which person was gonna lose their job. I approached it as from the standpoint of how long will our resources last and
Yep.
what will we do? And so I feel really good that it's helped, I think Laura and me, and I hope the executive committee at least and others to understand that approach. And we will try and keep you up to date, but we don't need to send it once a week. There's no reason.
Well, and it's
Unless
also,
something changes.
it's a great thing to keep in mind when somebody is like, why do you need that funding?
Mhm.
Well, because you never know when there's gonna be a COVID. You never know when there's gonna be a president change. You never know when there's gonna be a governor change. Like, you gotta be prepared to weather the storms. And this is a perfect example of why you have what you have and you don't spend down to your last dollar. So that your programming, your staff, all of those things don't get cut and can continue to move forward.
And I think that this is, if we do keep this up to date, we'll know in the summertime too, kind of what the disposition is of the county. I'm most worried about our county funding because the trickle down is gonna be painful. We already know that. We don't know what it might mean, but if we can stay level and we can show that we're secure, I think that gives them courage or gives them confidence, I would say, confidence that we're worth funding because we are not gonna go out of business in the next 2 months. So I feel like, well, it does kind of protect us a little bit against what might happen in 2026.
So should I not continue with the pie charts?
Unless you want bacon for us to eat.
Well,
Markel,
I'll hand that over to Lori.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Markel, but if you have specific questions and want us to follow up, let us know, and we'll try and create what you need without having to maybe go to quite the extent that we were planning to. Okay.
And I can keep the projections up to date each month end. And then bring one to the board meeting when we have a board meeting, rather than updating it every Friday.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then if anything happens major, we would definitely.
Pivot at that point, but
Yeah.
you have enough on your plate.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. The final finance piece on the agenda is the change to the financial controls. While reviewing the completed Form Code 1101, the internal control questionnaire that was submitted with our year-end documents, Elizabeth realized that although she informs the board of new funding sources, not every new source of funds is approved by the board and attached to the board meeting minutes. It was also discovered that this requirement was not included in our authorization and financial controls. We have added the requirement to our financial controls. It's in the red text underneath grants and contracts. And we'll add a section in our board minutes where new sources of funding will be listed and approval from the board will be requested. And we'll maintain the documents with our monthly details.
I guess I thought we had been doing some version of that.
We were doing a
We
version
were.
of it, but we weren't recording it in the
Yeah.
minutes in the way that it's supposed to be
Sure.
according to the rules. So
Okay.
we'll just get in compliance.
So we need
I
a
mean-
motion.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the authorization and financial control changes?
I move.
Second?
A second.
Any discussion?
Can I just ask a really quick question? So do you get gas at the county at all, or you just use the WEX part?
We
Both.
used-
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to, but then for a while it was suspended. There was a sign saying no gas at the county for until further notice.
That's our preferred place to get it, so we've encouraged the staff to start there if they can.
Gotcha, okay.
Um,
And I think that was when it was down and they were like doing some conversion or something, but that's all back and
There
I
have been
just
some-
wanted to make sure. that-
Yeah.
They've definitely used it a lot more in the last few months. Of course, I haven't had this. That's all I have for you all.
Okay.
Any questions?
Did we vote on this?
We did not. Vote.
All right, so all in favor?
Why?
Any opposed? Okay, we're good on that. Okay, that's it for
That's it
financials.
for me.
Okey doke. Staff reports,
That looks like this, it's got nice pictures.
yeah,
I should already have seen that one. Matt, that's a redo for you because it was the same one that went to the.
But this one's in color.
That's right. You can ask Judy. We always send them in color. It's wonderful that you know that you notice, because we never know if anyone looks at them.
thank you.
I'll be back. You're welcome.
You want me to jump in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a note, on the, longevity pay and the DEI. We're gonna save those to last, and we're gonna need to go into an executive session to discuss those. So we'll save it till the end.
Okay, I'm gonna start with a quick, rundown from Paul, who sent an update to all of you, and asked me to include it. So, some of these are just, what about the CCE statewide? $15 million is, in federal grants across all the associations. We have about 800,000. So those are in various states of approval and lack of approval. But he wanted you to know that that's kind of what CCE has from the federal government statewide. Extension administration paused doing the affirmative action, diversity and inclusion policy or plan, Lori, what, I don't know what that stands for, do you remember? Plan. This year until the executive orders are sorted out. That will come up again later, but that was a requirement for all the associated every year. We don't have to do it. The system is still subject to civil rights laws, even though executive orders may appear to the contrary. The university itself is instituted a hiring clause and a lot of cost mitigation efforts, and it means that campus staff is only for essential travel right now. Campus travel is only for essential purposes right now. So that's one reason why Paul will not be showing up in person to our meetings, but he regretted he couldn't be here on Zoom. And extension, year-end reporting is the same as last year. We aren't looking for an extension. And that there's a board training, there was a board training for presidents in March, and the board treasurer training is April 8th, and Daniel's gonna go. That's all from Paul. The next thing I wanted to bring up is the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Sean Gilland, received a national award. It seems like it may be appropriate for us to send from the Board of Directors some recognition of that national award. So I was hoping you would authorize me to send that or to draft that and have Ashley sign it on behalf of the whole CCE Board of Directors.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Great. I will do that. Oh, do you need to do a thing about that, or
You want a motion for that?
you can?
Probably should have a motion.
Yeah.
in a second.
Okay, so, can I get a motion to send a letter of recognition to the Galillans?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we just lost Daniel.
Who
Daniel,
seconded
say
it?
aye.
I'll second it.
You second?
We all say aye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unanimously.
Is
Thank you.
that the award, for conservation?
Yes, the one wherever. A staffing update, I'm thrilled to tell you that we have made an offer to a new Ironic Harvest program leader. The person is a young local farmer who is gonna start at 15 hours a week. They have a full-time job right now that we're suggesting that they might want to keep through the end of the school year and then start full-time in the summer. And that announcement will be coming from Cole and Lori next week, maybe?
I hope so.
We hope
We
so.
submitted the paperwork today. She's accepted the position and yeah, we're completing the paperwork today, so.
Much needed relief for Lori working on the festival, which is totally on track. Thanks to Lori. So thank you for filling in a lot of things between during this process, because we were kind of on again, off again, because a lot of the funding for this position is from FMPP, which we didn't know if we would have. Now we think it's okay. But it's a kind of good ramp up for that person, and they may be able to do more sooner, but we're really excited, and I think we're gonna really like the new person coming on board. We can't really announce it until it's all done. Fourth thing on vehicles, the executive committee had a conversation about vehicles. There's no update. It's just been too many things going on. I seriously feel like I've been running a collections agency here, trying to capture all of our funding and all of our things. And Lori did go and spend some time with Eggle Fields, and Daniel, cut to the chase, no update on vehicles. Lori has gone and looked into leasing. I have not gotten an answer yet from the county actually about going through their purchasing, because otherwise we have to go to bid. So there's really no update, to be continued. The fifth thing is, I was added to your packet this afternoon. It's about a contract with Tim Roland, a freelance writer. We submit all contracts to PW Wood before we sign them. And he has advised that we need more insurance coverage. Lori wrote this sort of summary of this. Lori, do you want to go over this a little
I
bit?
can. Yeah, I mean, it's the gist of it is we do a lot of work with Tim Rolland. In the past, he hasn't had any of the required insurance. In fact, checked with all of he's got a whole cohort of freelance writers who are completely baffled by the insurance requirements that were being requested. And last year, PW Wood allowed us to use a combination of the ICA, which is the independent contractor agreement, which is a simple one-page agreement where the contractor just waives all the liability, so it just absolves us of everything. We used a combination of that and then a regular modified contract, outside vendor contract. But this year, PW Wood is not willing to do that because we're going to be using Tim more this year and paying him more because he's going to do a full 12 articles. Normally he does probably like 6 or so per year, but he's going to do a bunch this year. So we turned back to Tim, who was willing to get, he already had the automobile coverage. The PW Wood is requiring general liability insurance and professional liability insurance. So Tim got the professional liability. He is not willing to get the general liability insurance. And you can see in red, it just says those are the things that the general liability would cover. Now, so Tim's got the auto, he's got the professional, he doesn't have the general liability. So PW Wood is not really willing to sign off on that. So it's up to us.
Right. So the situation that we're in is this is a very valuable community partner who we've worked with before, who is very excited about and committed to helping us fulfill our FMPP deliverables. My opinion and my recommendation to you is the board is allowed to overrule the recommendation from the risk management guy, from Jamie Ferris, from PW Wood. I consider the risk of bodily injury, property damage, medical expenses, or legal defense costs to be extremely small, and the value of this person to our association is very high. It'd be really hard to get what he does done in the way that he does it. He's just got an intimate knowledge and already has worked for us for quite a while. And he never had it before, and we paid him and used him. So my
Professional liability really covers what we
Right.
really worry about, which is
that he says something wrong about us, or that he misrepresents what we do, or
Right.
he gives someone advice and then they take it and then it looks back on us. He has that coverage. So, I just wanted to, my strong recommendation would be to, authorize me to sign a contract with him for 12 more articles or whatever it is that he's gonna do this year, if you feel comfortable doing that.
What's his reluctance to getting the general liability insurance?
He doesn't like to be have it demanded of him when no other of his clients require it, and he's never had to have it before. And he increased his prices and put out the money already to buy professional liability insurance that nobody else required. He's like, I'm done. I don't want to go shop for any more insurance. I'm done.
Yeah, it's more expensive, probably twice as much to get the general liability as what he just paid for the professional. And his rates would be so high. I mean, I don't know.
He's not even willing to do it.
He's not willing to entertain it. He was ready to walk is what he was, so.
So does he work for just our association or
No, he has other clients. No one else requires it. It is a certain,
what do other associations do?
what other, his
Other
clients,
businesses.
other businesses, not
CCE.
associations, yeah.
Right, but
I
I mean, what do other associations do? Do they have to hire someone like that?
Well, the thing is that he's a writer, and so the probability of someone tripping over no one goes to his house for him to write. He sits at his computer, no one goes and trips over his doorstep. So he doesn't carry that kind of liability for his business, because he's a writer. He does it all online. I mean, he sends you your documents and he submits the things that he writes to you digitally. So he just doesn't perceive a need for it for his business, and that is his choice.
But I think you're asking what other associations might do if they wanted to hire a writer.
Yeah,
They'd be doing this. They'd either find someone. So what PW Wood is telling us is that what we should be doing before we get grants like the FMPP is to find vendors who have all the correct coverage before we get into these grants. And it's really tough up here in the North Country to find local vendors. And I will say, we've worked with a graphic designer, Gwen Jamison, for years. Same thing was happening to her, and she this year got all the correct coverage. And so I think that's PW Wood has told us what we're doing is helping the local professionals by giving, introducing them to what they should be doing
Making
as
them more
professionals.
professional.
But it's a big ask for some of the people in our region.
It's a
So-
giant turnoff. Is what
Yeah.
it
And
is.
we've
It's a
had
giant turn-
this issue before with other.
at the Harvest
Oh, the
Festival.
Harvest
Yeah,
Festival
right.
is,
what's the story with that insurance situation?
we'll get into that this summer, but I do have to, eventually what we do is, some of the vendors at the festival do sign waivers. If they don't have the proper insurance, PW Wood is not happy with that, and basically they're just saying, we don't approve of it, so if this vendor, this woman who just makes jams and jellies in her kitchen, and she is certified by the state, but she doesn't have insurance, so if something happened, PW Wood is not gonna cover her, but she has signed waivers. The fairgrounds actually does have a perfectly reasonable waiver for vendors who are low risk and don't have the correct insurance. So everything for the festival has different requirements, and like the music vendors I'm working with, the musicians, the bands have an entertainment contract, and we're working with them right now on that, and most of it goes okay.
What is the time frame in which we have to make a decision about this?
He's ready to start. We commit to, when we part of question, he planned his year around the income he would make from doing this work before this requirement was made. Then the FMPP money was stopped. It is for FMPP, but we also want to use them for some farm to school stuff potentially. So he won't start writing until we tell him that, until we sign a contract with him. So if it needs more discussion, I would say the consequences are just delaying the delivery of the articles that he would write. And it's possible, I don't know, that he would go and get other clients to fill that workload if he's not gonna work for us.
Who is PW Wood again?
The risk management firm that it reviews, and it's all the CCE associations.
They're a pain.
They're a giant pain. They hang us up all the time, and this is an escalation, and it's just annoying to
So it's overreaching.
It's
Yeah.
overreaching, and it's a guy that the risk, like I say, the risk of something happening is very low. and-
Now, is it the risk to him getting hurt or the risk of people getting hurt by him.
People getting hurt by him is my understanding. That hits up, like your general liability for your home is, you know, if someone comes and trips and hurts themselves, you have to pay their doctor bill. And they could sue you. But
Well, just make sure he gets out in the middle of the road when he does it.
Or he was working for a different client.
It was DOT.
He was
it's their fault.
definitely working for a different client, not us. He loves CCE. He loves the work he's done for us. He's been very reliable.
He's worked for us for
timely.
years.
He's really, this is just like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
He's on several of my committees at the town, so,
Mm.
because they're town and J residents.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
He's a reliable stand-up guy. He's not a troublemaker in my experience, but I don't know what you've experienced.
No, stand-up guy,
Oh, okay. I was like, you're shaking your head. I'm like, oh, no. He's,
amazing guy.
yeah.
I
So-
mean, they run the J Community News.
Yeah.
Him and his wife.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And they're not out there like making a fortune on this writing thing. She's retired and I don't know what else he does.
No, and
He's a
in
writer.
fact, I think he provided, you know, he has a website, High Peaks Publishing, and that's what PW would dug around,
In fact,
figured out. He had a website, decided he was super professional. They wanted to see his revenues.
right,
Talk
Was
about
unhappy
overreach.
about that, did not share that, and we're like, we're not asking him to share his revenues. They decided he was so professional, if he had a website, that he should have all this coverage.
What kind of
is this a
money are we talking?
Manhattan firm?
No, but they're covering, what he tells us is that every time he decides to accept risk, all of the associations are at risk. So if something happened, it would affect all the associations to a certain degree. So he's gonna make those calls. And I will say, just as an aside, his wife used to be a partner in all this.
Mm.
And if it didn't work with Jamie, you'd go to Karen and she would sign off on all
Where is
these things. Karen retired.
Yeah, well.
I can't
he's come
find
back on
Karen.
her.
I miss Karen.
Although Jamie lets me statewide take kids camping with their horses in the woods overnight, but you can't have this guy easily.
Go
Wow.
figure.
Maybe if we say we're gonna take him
Maybe
camping
maybe
overnight.
Tim's gonna be in the woods riding by his campfire. I don't know. But we have a lot of other things to discuss. If you have
Yeah.
any more questions that I can't answer, I'd be glad to, but I think you have all the information that we know. And it's really just if you want to authorize me to sign a contract with him based on his previous.
Well, what's this policy gonna cost?
He's not willing to get it, so it's not, we can't even buy it for him. He's not willing to do it.
It's probably gonna, I mean, my best guess, because I did some research on it last year, it's gonna be at least $1,000 for this extra general liability. I think he just paid, I don't know what he just paid. I'm guessing it was 500 to 600 for the professional liability.
Probably more than that, because he increased his prices
That's true,
accordingly.
maybe up to 800.
So we can authorize you to override it.
It's overriding the recommendation of the risk manager.
I say good for it.
Or, oh, you don't even have to mention that. You can just say authorizing me to
Just sign
sign a contract with.
And,
General.
yeah. And it's understood that we're accepting the risk.
You ready to do this?
Was that a motion, Florence?
Oh, I guess so.
Is there a second then?
I mean, I don't know, can I vote here? I never ever know if I, then I will
Absolutely.
make the sign.
Okay.
And you're in this too, you know.
And Mike's in this too.
Okay. So is there a second for this motion?
That was
That
Matt.
was Matt.
Florence and Matt,
Okay,
we're
all
all.
right.
we've got a first and
All in
second.
favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? All
Okay.
right.
Mike's nodding. Voting
Mike
yes.
was a yes, okay, Daniel opposed.
My suggestion is to go ahead and get this emergency plan approval done and then
All
go
right.
back to the other business.
Okay. The emergency plan.
It's a big fat packet. Lori, can you just mention what were the only changes?
Yeah,
Very-
there's hardly any changes in this from last year, it's basically been updated. With just current information and staffing, we we'll do one change that we no longer use a phone tree. We do one text really is all it takes now, there's no need for a phone tree. We do have, let's see, I don't think anything else was updated there. There's different pages. Everything is pretty up to date. What else did we add here? Oh, I added a page on local resources for receiving ongoing information about weather and road closures. We've been trying to work with the staff on making sure they have these resources. This whole plan will be shared with the staff after it's approved. We are required to upload this to the document tracking tool that is gonna close. That's gonna be at the end of this the weekend. There's the public health and public and Florida health emergency plan. This was that we've had since the pandemic. And so that's, it hasn't changed at all. It's all the same recommendations in case we have another pandemic. Then we do have a list of the emergency contact information, current board of directors, which, I mean, you'll see on there, actually, I'm gonna modify that, just so you know, because we don't have an appointment of Alicia Bartlett yet. I sort of penciled her in there, but that's really an open spot on the board. Vendor supply list, building exits, these are all the things that are required to be in our emergency management plan. So
I think this requires it. I think you have to make a motion to authorize Ashley to sign this. Is that-
yeah, so actually that we'll need to sign this. So, but I think they just, I think they vote to approve it and then actually just signs it when it's over. Yeah.
So can I get a motion to approve the emergency plan?
I'll move with one amendment. Page 1, 2, 3, 4,
Mhm.
Department Communications, Laura's not payroll contact.
What? Wait a minute, say that again, what page?
Page 4, contact information, yeah, official, alternate, and payroll as opposed to payroll.
Huh? Wow,
So
nice
I'm
catch.
missing that, where?
At the, right down here. Looks like she's on a girl. That's not how you play.
That's not even-
That's not how you hit you.
You know, that's probably been in there since day one, because I did not design this. You're the first one to catch that. You win a prize.
Yeah.
Okay, as amended.
Okay, and amended with,
I think it's corrected, not amended.
well, right, I'll make that correction and remove the board member that's not appointed yet.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. Board paperwork.
Oh,
there's
just
something you
there's
need.
2 people, George and Matt maybe, had, there's the annual paperwork to be signed.
We can mail it to you, you can send it back.
Well, it's here, it's
Oh,
here,
oh,
so
it's
you
here.
can just
Perfect.
sign it here or take it with you, or I think I'm still missing some from Ashley, but that's okay.
We've got quite a bit to discuss with the longevity and DEI. And I would
Sorry.
suggest that we table the discussions about new board members and committee assignments until next month. So we get out of here before 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that.
I think someone has to make a motion to table.
Oh, do we? Oh,
All
okay,
right,
I
so
trust you.
can I get
Or
a
maybe,
motion?
maybe since you're presiding, I don't know the procedure, but maybe since you're presiding, you can just decide that. Go.
All right, I decide that we'll table these. Okay, so then, we're gonna need to go into an executive session.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be any more discussions after the executive session or is that it?
Well,
You wanna talk about DEI right now and be, well, not an executive session?
all right, we could do that, we could do that.
I got a question. Farm to school program. How many schools do we have in the county that are participating in that?
All of them. Oh, well, in education programs, but not actually in procurement. I think there are 3 or 4 that are meeting the 30% threshold. And get.
So they're utilizing farm products approximately 30%.
Yeah, so the state, has an incentive program where if 30% of the food purchased is purchased locally, and that does include New York State products, that their per meal reimbursement goes from 5 cents a meal up to 25 cents a meal. So there's a pretty good incentive there to get to that 30%. And that, Megan Doman was the person who set up those systems and helped people get to that 30%. It's pretty onerous paperwork. But as far as I know, at least 3 and I think 4 have met the 30% threshold, but I can confirm that.
Well, it's just any product from New York State, not just the county.
But there are other schools that are buying local food, they just haven't met the 30% threshold.
Are they considered participants in the farm to school program statewide?
I'm not sure what you mean by the farm to school program. They do all get education that has as part of our farm to school program, so we get grants for farm to school education and they all participate in that. But there isn't like a statewide registration of schools that are participating or let's put it this way, Harvest New York works with Ag and Markets to track that, but it isn't like a certificate or a seal of approval or a stamp or an enrollment in a program. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, there was a article in one of my farm papers here, last month, I think it was. That they interviewed 2 politicians that are big advocates for agriculture in New York State. And they were saying that they think that program is in jeopardy.
Federally, the executive order has already been issued to end funding for schools to buy food from farms. So
Okay.
there will not be federal funding for that as long as the executive order holds up.
And that also applies to food banks
Mhm.
that we're buying.
Oh.
local.
So that's at the federal level. So in New York State, the Commissioner of Agriculture did a great presentation at the Minor Institute last Friday, and is still very, very much behind farm to school programming and funding. And is included in the governor's budget for this next, starting.
Yeah, well, that's what they were talking about, was the budget.
Mhm. New York State budget?
Yeah,
It's in the budget. This proposed budget, which hasn't been signed yet, does include funding for farm to school programming. And actually, I don't remember what the numbers were, but an increase from previous years.
well, these 2 state senators, they threw out some numbers there that they didn't specify if they met that threshold to receive the higher amount, or if it was just enrollment together. But they were saying that that program is something that they're really seriously looking at because of lack of participation. They had, these were exact numbers that they gave. That statewide, there was only 77 schools in the whole state that participated in that program out of 4,500 almost. There's like 4,470 some schools.
I'd have to look into that more, but I can get an answer for you about how many in Essex County. It's a low number, but that doesn't reflect the number of kids that are getting the benefit from that. Nor does it reflect the number of farmers that are having food bought locally that they don't have to pay to transport.
Right, but what I'm saying is that they even came right out and said that if there's not more participation statewide than that, then that program could be really in deep trouble. And one thing that they were saying is that the numbers haven't increased hardly at all, if at all, over time. And that, to me, seemed like a very low number out of 40, almost 4,500.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But it could have been 77 that reached that upper threshold. It didn't say anything about that.
Yeah, I'd have to get some more numbers. I don't know the answers, but I would venture to say that every school in the county is buying some local food.
Do you know how much money goes into that program from the state? That's,
No, I'd have to go look. From for Essex County, you mean, or, and I don't know either answer
Yeah.
for the whole state or for Essex County, but I'll get some more information.
but they, you know, they're big advocates. For, for agriculture, they're from Western New York, both of them, and, they. Those numbers, they were not happy with, let's put it that way. They said point blank in the articles that. The participation has to really increase to. Cause I mean, I'm only guessing, but I'm assuming that they probably looked at that program, some other people in the state have looked at that program before. And said, you know. What's going on here? Why is there so low in numbers participating in it? And that's
Yeah.
why I was wondering about our own county here. I had no idea how many were.
I'm gonna answer that question for you. Yeah,
I think a lot of districts have been pretty creative as well as how they're taking the best route to get the full reimbursement or to ensure that all the students are having access, especially those districts that have the free lunch. And I'll speak to Willsboro on that, but they've done, a little biased, but I think they've done an amazing job of getting opportunities to get fresh local food to those kids for both breakfast and lunch.
yeah, I think that we have a lot of really good partners, Willsboro, Boca Valley. I wanna say, I don't know if they've met the 30% threshold, so I can't really say for sure, but I wanna say Thai has a lot of local food. From local farmers as well as their own farm their own garden that they grow food in. I'm not sure who the other one might be. Well, Saranac Lake does, but so that draws from Essex and Franklin County. I'm gonna find out. I'll find out some more for you. And actually, there's an event on Wednesday that's gonna be all about farm to school at the Wild Center. It's a conference and so we'll get some more info for you. Yeah. Move on.
Yes, the DEI memorandum.
I hate, honestly, I feel like I'm wasting your time bringing this to your attention, but it's really important. It's really important. By wasting your time, I mean, we've been on a great path in Essex County to try and expand our impact to people who might not otherwise might participate. But now we're in a new place, and we're not getting any guidance from CCE administration. That's why I wrote this out. We have been told that in order to get federal money, you have to comply with the executive orders. The one executive order says you have to take any language, include this, a whole long list of words have to come out of any public facing language or grant proposals or program descriptions or education lessons. And so but they don't really tell us who you report that to or who's gonna be checking or what the criteria are. They don't CCE doesn't tell us anything because there isn't really any guidance from the people who made the executive orders.
Have you lost any funding because of it yet?
The FMPP was very likely paused and reviewed exactly for that purpose,
But we still got it.
but we got it, we got it.
Personally, I wouldn't do anything with it until something happens.
Well, here,
I agree. Keeps changing, keeps coming on and on.
I need to hear this from you, what you want me to do, because I am worried that for us to, when you look at the list, which is on the second or third page of. I was told by CC administration to inventory where you might have language that would flag a review or an investigation or, revision to like basically they could come back and say, you have this stuff on your website, so we're taking away your grant funding. So, I think that, my bar is to make sure that we don't get flagged and made an example of.
You're gonna check it, they're gonna fire everybody anyways from the federal level, so there won't be anybody to enforce it. I wouldn't worry about it until you know that you're gonna lose funding because of it. I wanna go and rewrite all the bylaws and all this, that, the other thing, and worry about DEI until there's.
Yeah.
No one's come to us either, like, we've got stuff from CCE, but no one's like met with at least animal science at the state level. And we have some of, not, I don't think we have it as many places. But like, no one's come to our like state 4-H as far as, unless I'm missing something, but no one's come to us and stressed it yet.
Mm.
But
Well,
it could be coming.
where I was pressed to go make this inventory was from a monthly executive director call where Andy Turner said you all should be aware, you should be making an intentional decision about what you want to do about this and talking to your staff about it.
The
So,
only thing I would do, make a list of where it's mentioned. And if there's an issue that you gotta change, you can get us together and decide at that point in time, but I won't prematurely change stuff until.
Aren't there a lot of lawsuits going on
There are.
with putting things on hold?
Almost every executive order has. one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The whole thing is. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions until it's where some other organizations. Are gonna see a cut in their, in their programs or their funding or whatever. And then if that happens, then you know that they may carry through with that process, but it's in court and everything else. I wouldn't change a thing, especially if you don't have to write any grants right away for any more money. If we're pretty secure and on the right track there, because, Lord knows what's gonna happen.
And you're in
Yeah.
a DEI state,
mhm.
so.
So that is great to hear. I will tell you that we talked about it at the staff meeting, because I want the staff to feel okay, like that we're not flying a flag out there that's gonna get them to lose their job. And the staff all said that they felt like this is a really important time for us to show up and follow through with the values that we have, which we have tried to put in public. And I needed to know that, because what my personal values and my personal actions that I would take are different from what I would take when I know that it's possible that 10 people could lose their job, and I don't want to be that. I don't want to take that. Well, it doesn't, you don't think so, but if that person is gonna not sleep at night because they're afraid they're gonna lose their job because we have this kind of language on our website. I feel that, I feel sensitive to that, and I want to reassure them that the board has a strong. I mean, I don't know whether
This goes back to, even if you were to lose a grant because of it, you have liquidity to be able to move forward.
Mhm.
And then you can pivot from there if you have to, but.
Does the equal opportunity employer statement include in this?
No, well, it could or not, because there's, that would, I believe that would be flagged as being, because it says we are an equal opportunity and affirmative action educator and employer.
Is that what it says?
That is what it says. So
Cause you got that thing on the bottom of all your,
letterhead and email and all those
Letter.
things.
And all that language has been in our association for forever. So,
Also keep in
Why do
mind,
we
New
need
York
to
State
change
just
that?
passed an amendment. Last election, like protecting certain races and like
Mhm.
sex and, I mean. The federal government can say what they want, but the state has a lot of pull in saying, yeah, you can't do that.
Well, I don't want to be fomenting fear out there in people, and if I feel, I guess I want to hear from you as a group and know that we're good to go. We don't need to change anything on our website. I think that would reassure the staff that y'all have heard this issue and looked at it and don't think it's a concern. Makes me feel better, I'll tell you that, because I think about it all the time, because I don't want anyone losing their job. So if you're directing me to not change anything, that's a statement unto itself, and that we're prepared to back that up if we do get targeted or do lose funding.
There's also reputation that, like, people that are bending the knee, they're getting some bad raps, right? The people are saying, all right, I'll do whatever they say, and then you lose that. people goodwill, and it's hard to. get
Yeah,
back.
you lose your credibility.
Yeah, you
and-
gotta have some integrity and some
Yeah.
spine.
I definitely don't want us to lose credibility because we don't stand up. I just don't want anyone to lose their job. Um, yeah, so maybe, I'll communicate that to staff that, feel this way, and if you wanna have a sense of the meeting, if everyone doesn't agree and you don't feel comfortable saying it here, you can talk to us later, but it seems like the sense of the meeting is.
We can even make a resolution if you want. And stand behind it so it gets in the minutes.
I think something should be in the minutes to the
So I'll
effect
make a
that you discussed
resolution
it.
to not change any DEI standards. For Cornell Cooperative Extension, Essex County at this time.
Is there a second to that?
I second it.
Okay.
Thank you. That feels a lot better, really does. It's hard to know. You just read stories and they make an example out of the craziest thing, a 6-year-old with brain cancer is deported,
The problem is that fear and capitulation is just like it's a downward spiral, right? Everybody's a door, the next guy does it and then.
Well, I got a question. What happens if this goes through the court? And it does become law?
Well, then we changed everything.
Yeah, then we have to change it.
So,
We're prepared. We have our list. It's really a matter of like some of the things that are flat. It's easy to change your email signature. It's easy to change your letterhead. It's easy to delete a few pages off our website. We don't know how many people, I have no data, no analytics on the traffic to those pages anyway. But those are the big things that we could do. And you know what I just know what people are talking about, that they're using AI to go out and search all of the data, the whole database of funding recipients. And flagging what they're flagging. The AI flags it, and
yeah,
that's how Jackie Robinson got taken off the Department of Defense, right? Because an AI bot went out and searched who doesn't belong. And that's what they came up with.
They removed the Enola Gay, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Transgenic and transgender minds.
Yes, women.
Oh my God, I gotta fire my assessor.
Yeah.
So.
Name's Tim Gay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so these are it's
Yep.
so bizarre, who could make this stuff up, so I'm trying not to be paranoid, but at the same time, there's examples out there of some pretty crazy stuff. Because we do have another topic to go on to, I want to make sure that we can get to that.
Okay. All right, so we're good on the DEI.
Thank you for doing that. Did you vote on it?
I,
I,
Aye.
There we go.
Yeah,
He's nodding, aye, okay.
I am proud to have a board that does that.
I
Thank you.
appreciate your fear too. I don't mean to sound like, don't worry about it, but, because I understand that you're worried about your team.
I am, but they're also really brave,
That's great.
and
Yeah,
so I want to back that up.
There was not one staff member who was like wavering about it.
There's a couple who
Good.
didn't speak, but I didn't take that as an indication that they were
Yeah.
against it. It was just that they were concerned, but and they want to do the right thing.
I think everyone is relieved to hear, all the staff were relieved to hear everyone else sort of voice their concerns and yet their conviction to uphold everything we've stood for so far.
Yeah. So I think it's up to, I think the next step is someone has to make a motion to go into executive session. You have to invite me to come in if you.
all right, so we're gonna discuss the longevity pay. Can I get a motion to go into executive?
I'll
Second?
make the motion.